infantry company.
Oh yeah, I was in an infantry company. Yeah, of course I was behind them. I followed them, you might say.
But you're yards away from them. You're not you're not a mile
Oh no,
back.
no,
or
I
anything.
maybe made from here. Well, maybe from here to the street and closer. And of course, if somebody calls for you, then you go forward. But
Now you talked earlier about bullets just whizzing right by your
yeah,
head.
I was what they always told you to do. Don't ever stop on top of a hill. Well, everybody stopped on top of the hill, and I think I must have been crouched down because I heard right by my right foot. I wish I could have dug that bullet out. I jumped and I took off. And then what I didn't like and nobody liked to do was go through a forest. Because the trees, the Germans could pop up anytime, camouflage. Well, I heard a bullet whiz right by my ear, and I kept on going. But other than that...
Are you clearly marked as a medic with the red cross on your
oh
helmet?
yeah, regular steel helmet with a big white circle and a great big cross right in the middle. A perfect target. I grew up here in Toledo. I was born in St. Vincent Hospital. And my folks, it was in the Depression, and my dad worked at WPA, and I've always lived in West Toledo. And it was pretty tough during the Depression because you didn't know when your next meal was coming, and we moved to quite a few places. And my dad, well, the bank, he'd rent from the bank, and then somebody else would buy the house, and then a couple houses we rented, but the people that owned the houses, they wanted to move in, so that left us out. And but it was tough. It was tough. You very seldom ever left anything on your plate. My mom always says, "Eat everything you got and be thankful for it," which we all were. Yeah, I have two sisters. We managed to, of course, all you had was the radio. And I remember I used to go to the Westwood Theater. It's still open down on Sylvania Avenue. We used to go for a dime. You go there for a dime, and usually on Saturday you'd have a cereal, and then another picture, and it wasn't fun, but it was you knew that you were having not a very good time, but we survived, and of course both my parents are gone now, but we were a pretty well knit family.
Did you go to high school?
I went to DeVilbiss. Graduated in 1941. It was an awful large graduate school. I think we had almost 800 kids that graduated that year, because we were the only high school in this area where we are now, West Toledo. But then eventually they made START, and that took a lot of them. And DeVilbiss went all the way to Reynolds Corners, and we went to the Colony District, and way out here. So it was an awful big school. My mother was married to my dad. They married in Detroit. I think it was 1920, I believe. And my dad worked at a plant. I think you would call it air reduction sales. It's liquid oxygen. Well, one day there was a fire at this plant.
This is in 1923.
There was a terrific explosion. And I guess everybody from the plant got out except my dad. They said he went back into the plant for some unknown reason. Well, the whole building went. The whole building went, and he was buried, I guess, under rocks and everything. And I guess my mother said he was put in a closed capsule because he... Well, anyway, that was May of 1923. And then I was born in August of 1923. So I never saw my real dad. And after the trauma left my mother, she moved back to Toledo with her folks, and she stayed with her folks until I was with her 1923, and then I believe it was 1925, I think, or 26, she remarried. So I have a stepdad. His name was Harold Miehls. So actually, I'm an Art by blood, but a Miehls by marriage. So it was very, very traumatic for my mother, because she was only 20, and she was a widow. She was a widow at 20. So luckily she had a place to go. She had a place to go.
Toledo was much more sectionalized then. You stayed in your neighborhood, didn't you?
Oh yes, I've always
You
been
wouldn't go to the north end, or you wouldn't.
No, I've always been in West Toledo. We lived on Charleston Avenue. Excuse me. Then we lived on, about 6 months we lived in Point Place. That was terrible. And then we lived on in St. Bernard Drive in a colony, and we lived on Grantwood, and we lived on Westbrook, all around there. And my folks lived on Melwood Court, and that's where I went in the service, at Melwood Court. And then my mother, she lived on Secor Road after my dad died. And then my dad died in 1960. And then she lived there, and then she passed
Do
away.
you recall the day that Pearl Harbor was bombed, or how you heard about it?
Oh yeah.
I ask that of a lot of vets, and almost everybody has a specific story about when they heard about Pearl Harbor being bombed.
I know we lived on we lived on Westbrook, and we were listening to the radio, and all of a sudden the special news flash that the Japanese had bombed Pearl Harbor, and that's how we first heard about it.
Did you even know where Pearl Harbor was?
No, I don't think so. I knew it was in the South Pacific somewhere, but then that was quite a shock to all of us. And then my dad, he had to sign up. He had to sign to be drafted, but he had 4 kids, and he was overage, so he didn't go.
Like to live in Toledo during the war with the rationing and the. I mean, you just couldn't go anywhere.
Well, actually, I didn't know that. I was in the service. I had no idea.
So rationing wasn't going on while you were still
Oh, it
home?
was going on, but it didn't affect me because I wasn't home.
Okay.
My folks.
But I mean, before you went into service, was there rationing?
Well, there must have been, but I just don't. I just can't recall. I know my dad. I remember he had a sticker for the front of his car. He had a Model A Ford, and he had a gas sticker. But I don't remember. I don't remember too much about rationing of sugar or anything like that. To be truthful with you.
Had you met your wife prior to going in the service?
No. I met my wife on the golf course. I met my wife on the golf course, and we were married in May 14th, 1955. 55.
After you got drafted, where did you go?
Well, we went to Camp Perry. We went to Camp Perry, and then we stayed there for, I think, 2 days. So by the time they got your organization and all that other stuff, and then we headed for Texas. And I took my basic training at Camp Swift, Texas. It was near Austin. And then we stayed there until, I believe it was September. And then we joined 3 other divisions. I can't think of the name. I think one was the 86th Division. We went on maneuvers in Louisiana. We were down there from the fall of, I think, like I said, I think it was from September 43 to, I think it was February, or either January or February of 44. We had, one of the divisions would be a German division, and our division would simulate going after them, and we had red bands. For one problem, you had a red band, and then you turn it over and it was blue. We were on the defensive one time. It was tough. I think Louisiana was really tough. The climate was terrible. They had copperheads down there and snakes, and it was mud, and they said, well, dig a foxhole. Well, you'd take one shovelful, you'd have water. So you forgot about that. So then after that, we went to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. That was a beautiful camp. That was a huge camp. And all this time we were training for Japan. So
you already had your combat medic training?
No, you didn't get a combat medic badge until you were in combat.
I mean, did you have your training to be a combat medic prior?
Or
did you just go to regular infantry basic
Yeah,
training?
I was up from the day I got in Camp Swift. I was a medic.
Was that by your choice?
No. There was. I remember being in this barracks, and they said everybody fall out. So we fall out in the parade ground, and they said A goes here, B goes here, C goes here. Well, I was at the end, so I got to the medics, and you had no choice. You just, when your name was called, that's where you went.
So there was no testing, no anything else. It
Nothing
was,
at all. We were just.
You're picked.
Yeah, you were picked. You. I want one volunteer, and I think it'll be you. So we did. We had no choice. And then you want me to continue with the? Yeah. Well, we were.
Well, let me ask you, so did they just, when they flew you out there, so the guy in front of you might have been an artilleryman, the guy before that might have been, you know, a cook,
No.
or something like that? I mean,
You were all in, you were an infantry regiment.
Yeah, we
So
did.
some might have done mortars, some might have been
Oh, yeah, we
a BAR man, but it was all within that unit, right?
Actually, we didn't know what division what it is until a day or so later. But everybody was like me. They green behind the ears, and they just, well, you just went where you were told. So luckily, well, I wouldn't say luckily, but it was you think of the guys you were with. I met a lot of guys that were just like me. Some fellas never wore shoes before, and we met a lot of guys from New Jersey.
Had you really traveled out of Toledo
Oh yeah, we
prior
were.
to the war?
Oh no, well we used to go to. Well, actually, not too much. My folks, we didn't do too much traveling. We used to go to. Well, we'd go to Irish Hills a while, and my dad used to fish, and I used to fish. But we didn't go any long travels.
So being in the Army was an eye-opener to the
Oh, it
different
sure
kinds of
was.
people there are.
Oh, you better believe it. You better believe it. And then, after, like I said, after Fort Wood, we went to, we started our amphibious training. So we went to, Camp San Luis Obispo, and that was a staging area. So we were there for a couple of weeks, and then they trucked us to Camp Pendleton.
At amphibious training, are you doing simulated off-landing craft?
Yeah. We went to, I just mentioned the Camp Pendleton, and we got on the LCIs, Lightning Craft Infantry, and they put us out in the ocean, and we went around the circle, for a while, and then they brought up these the boats that hit the beach. So we all climbed down nets, and then we waited, maybe about an hour, and by the time we went around the circle, and that smoke from the diesel engines, everybody was sick. And all of a sudden, we all hit the beach at Camp Pendleton, and I remember we had to run maybe 50 yards in almost ankle-deep sand, and you take one foot forward, 2 foot back, and then the problem was over. And then,
How much did your equipment weigh?
well, I had very little. I just had maybe 5 pounds when you figure your pack, which was nothing in it, and a canteen, and a mess kit. Oh, I had an entrenching tool too. That's for digging foxholes. I said maybe 5-6 pounds.
So
But-
you, as a medic, you didn't carry extra bags?
Well, when we got over there, well, after we got more into training, they give us these. I just had one, and that time they give us the old fashioned gas mask, the UF gas mask. And, oh, I forgot to mention I think it was Camp Swift. I believe that one of their basic training. They had a infiltration course. They had that I had all barbed wire. I meant everybody was in combat went through infiltration course, and you had to crawl on your hands and knees under this barbed wire, and there was 50 caliber machine guns going over your head. That was the infiltration course. And then the next one we went through was the gas chamber. The gas chamber. You'd walk in with your mess kit, your
gas mask.
gas mask, all in the container. And then they talked to you now what we're going to do. So they said, we're going to count to 10. So they counted to 10, and as soon as they hit 10, you were to take your gas mask out of the container, put up in your face, and all this other stuff. And a lot of guys couldn't make it. And I had a hard time too. And then you'd walk out. But by that time, your eyes would be watering, and everything you were sweating, and I think that was one of the worst times I ever spent. A lot of guys that couldn't get it on fast enough, but that was the training. But a funny part of it, when we landed, that's the first thing we discarded was the gas mask. We didn't have to haul the gas mask around. Oh, I'm off my.
What was in your medical bag then?
Oh, we had scissors and some bandages, and the tape, and packet of sulfanilamide. All the GIs had a container of sulfanilamide, so they could sprinkle their
That's what they carried in the medical pouch off their cartridge belt.
Cartridge belt, right? We just had a regular pistol belt. After that, we finally got our moving.
So you were Pendleton
orders.
still back. So you were Pendleton, and then okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
after Pendle, we went to Camp Cook. I think we stayed there about 6 months, and we're all set to go Japan, but they said that we're going to go. You're going to go to New York. So I think we got on there at Fort Dix. I think it was Fort Dix, New Jersey, and I remember getting on the boat.
Took a train, right?
Yeah, we took the old troop train. Everybody jammed in one
It was fun.
spot. It was a long haul. It was a long haul.
Are you hearing rumors about the bulge going on? Because that's about when that took place, right?
Pardon?
The Battle of the Bulge. Are you guys?
Oh
hearing
no,
the
that
news?
was.
Prior to you going over, the bulge is going on.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. That was the bulge was this. There was this going over when I think it was this either this starting or just winding down. Well, anyway, we got on the boat. I can't think of the name of the boat, and we went on the convoy, back and forth, the destroyers, and then we landed in Le Havre, France.
Did you get seasick?
Yeah, I usually get when I want when
I know I would.
I didn't upchuck, but it was terrible.
Were you jammed down below in the high
No,
bunks?
we had nice accommodations up on the top of the ship, and everybody noticed that when we got on the ship, it smelled like fresh paint. So it might have been discommissioned. Discommissioned, and we were up on topside. And I remember, of course, we had to go down below for chow, and then we landed in Le Havre, and there was the staging areas were over there. They were named for cigarettes. It was
Camp Lucky Strike.
Lucky Strike, Old Gold, Chesterfield, and I'm not quite sure what camp we were at. We weren't over there 2 days to get more organization. Then they put us on trucks, and away we went. We went through Belgium. And we crossed one bridge into Germany. I don't know if it was the Remagen Bridge or not. Of course, that was blown up. The Remagen Bridge was blown up, but it was a pretty good sized bridge that we passed over. It was complete safe. There's nothing. There was a couple bridges. Now I don't know. They didn't tell us what bridge it was.
It was a regular German bridge. You didn't cross the pontoon bridge.
Oh no, that was a regular. We crossed the. Well, it might have been the Rhine. Anyway,
The Remagen Bridge was across the Rhine, and we captured that intact. It was actually the first guy across was from Toledo.
He was from Rossford, I believe.
It's from Holland.
Was
Oh,
from
was that
Holland?
right? Wow.
Oh yeah, it was in the paper. Yeah, and I don't remember any.
Do you remember if it had like two turrets on the side of the bridge, like big stone castle? Because that would have been the bridge at Remagen.
to be truthful with you, I was in the back of a 2.5-ton truck with it all covered up, and I was looking out the back. So I don't know what bridge it is. I couldn't tell you.
Of course, if somebody might have said there's a bridge ahead, you might have paid attention.
Are you getting nervous?
Oh no, I'm just.
No, I mean, are you getting nervous because you?
Oh yeah.
You're starting to see the wreckage of war,
Yeah,
right?
we were always nervous. Anybody says, blah blah. Yeah. Well, anyway, we crossed the bridge, and like I said, I don't know if it was Remagen Bridge or not, but it was completely. There was nobody around it, so it might have been. It might have been. And then from there, I just don't remember. We just every day you'd walk. We were around we circled Dusseldorf. That was in the Ruhr pocket, and I remember Solingen. And now the funny part about it, a lot of part of our division, they might have been in some other part of Germany, so I don't know what they went on. But most of the 97th Division was in the Ruhr pocket, and then we kept going and going and going, and then when the war started just after the war ended, we were on the march towards Czechoslovakia, and that's where we ended up at Pilsen. And,
as you're going towards the front, are you starting to see the wreckage of war, blown up trucks and tanks and?
a lot of buildings, not many tanks and trucks. Mostly buildings were pretty well bombed. And I remember one night we stayed at this one German house. We stayed overnight there, and this young gal, she was washing field jackets. So I had her wash my field jackets and a couple other guys. And I don't think I think we just gave her candy or something because we didn't have any money. And then we stayed out this one night we stayed and most of the time we just you just stayed where you could, and if you found a house, you just stayed there. And we never, anybody I was with, never did anything that would harm anybody. We just, if we just walk in and we just lay down or just, but of course the people over there were very nice, and I remember I run across some couple. The only thing I got from her was Dayton. I told her I was from Toledo, and I said it's near Dayton. But then when the war was over, we just all got back. I went out. Somebody on their way to Czechoslovakia. One of the guys in the M company got sick, and myself and another GI. I think we fell out with him. He wasn't wounded. He was just I forget what was the matter. We fell out with him, and the rest of the guys went ahead. And we walked into Pilsen. Our division was our regiment was nowhere to be found. But we finally got back to him. But there was a lot of pictures taken in Pilsen I wish I had, but I'll never see them.
When you got into combat, because your unit was in combat 30-some plus days, right?
Yes, some.
Was there shelling going on?
Oh yeah. That was shelling.
Did you get to the point where you could tell the difference between their artillery and the German 88s? I've heard from a lot of vets that there's a distinctive sound to a German 88.
No, I can't say that, but I know those 88s were pinpoint. They were accurate as the devil. They were really something.
So your unit is taking casualties?
Oh yeah, our unit. We took a few, the ones I was with, but now the rest of the 97. You said how many were killed there?
178 killed, 669 wounded.
Oh boy, they must have been in a different section of Germany, because luckily our division did well. We were kept in the States so long. We never got a chance to.
That's a 10,000. Is that a division? 10,000?
No, it's a little more than that. I think it's 15. By the time you get your regiments and your artillery is in there and everything combined, it's about 15,000.
And then you'll have like tank destroyers assigned to you.
Yeah. I never saw any GI tanks. But like I said, our division.
Are you taking care of wounded?
I picked up a few, yeah. A couple.
Gunshots?
Yeah, gunshots. And one guy, I put a tourniquet on him. He was bleeding. And a couple of young German soldiers, I fixed them up too. I forget what I did, but they were all youngsters. The poor guys. They were just in awe because they were just shoved in there, and it was a shame. But
what did they seem like to you? I mean, if you had to give an overall impression of what they looked like, what would you say?
Well, they were. You can't say. You could probably call them normal, but they were just scared, and they were put in something that they just couldn't comprehend. And they may have been maybe 15 or 20 years old, or they might have been my age, but they were scared. They were scared, and well, you can't blame them. They had no choice. So they were just grabbed. And
any conversation with them?
No, when the war was over, they gave a strict order. Anybody that was in any way talking to a German, you'd be fined. They said if Germans come up, talk to you, put their arms around you, they completely ignore them. Don't say anything. They always said if any of these young gals come up to you, just walk away, because you were not allowed to in any way. You couldn't shake their hand. You couldn't talk to them. Nothing.
No fraternization.
No fraternization whatsoever. That for the month.
Was that strictly adhered to, or do you know?
Well, as far as I know, yeah. We were never in any place where when the war was over. We just camped. We just camped, and we just waited to be all together. And we used to chum around with, and when we were in camp, he was killed. But other than that,
was he a medic?
Oh yeah, he was a medic. Last time I saw him, he was riding in the truck. But I don't know where he was killed, but I heard he was the only one, the only medic that I was with me in my area. But now there might have been medics in the other part of the division that were, see, there was the 387th, the 386th, and the 330th. Those were the three
Infantry
infantry
regiments.
regiment that was in the 97th Division. So,
And how many medics does each regiment have? One for every company?
no, there's three for each company. There's three medics for each company, and of course there's 4 battalions.
Was the guy who was killed in the same company as you?
No, I think he was killed in. He was in the same. He was in the 3rd Battalion. He might have been in either.
Was he in the same regiment?
Oh yeah. He
You
was. He
remember
was.
his name?
I didn't know. In fact, when I got home, I wrote his mother, and told her he was from Chicago. And oh, she was so thankful. I said, well, I saw Bob. It might have been the day he was killed. And I said he was riding in the back of the truck, and I waved to him. I don't think he saw me, but yeah, there was A company, A, B, C, and
So his
D.
first name was Bob.
First name was Bob. I can't remember his last name. I didn't know, and he might have been in one of the other. He might have been in either. KL. I mean, he might have been in the K and L.
You were an L, right?
What was there? I and K. He wasn't an L. He wasn't an M. So he was either an I company, or I company, or B company, or K company.
Oscar, do you think your training prepared you for combat? Or was it
Well-
something that you can't be prepared for?
Well, they did an awful lot of things in basic training that when you got overseas, you didn't worry about that. I know, of course, I was only on the rifle range just once. Just one day we spent on the rifle range, and they said you out and you're supposed to get your arm way under the M1, you know, and you didn't do that. You didn't do that when you got in combat, but that was all part of your basic training. And then, like I said, I only fired the rifle maybe a day, maybe 8 hours.
Did the guys in your company kind of look after the medics?
Well, not particularly. I was friends with them. But we always talked and joked. But most of the time in camp, you weren't with them. You were with your own medics in the one group. Then when you went overseas, all the medics split up, and you were never together again until the war was over in Germany, and we all got back together again, and we were together in camp. There's one I can't remember again. One in North Carolina. We were together there in training, but that's when the war ended.
Fort Bragg.
Fort Bragg. I can never remember I remember Fort Leonard Wood. They had wax on the base, and they told us, AWOL, hey, stay away. And that was down in the Ozarks. Right near St. Joseph's.
Did you just strictly work within a company, or did you
No, you're
ever
right.
go to like a battalion aid station?
No, they had the regulars. That's where the battalion surgeon was, and he was a dentist. He was battalion surgeon. He was a dentist. But I just stayed with the same guys I was just with.
Were you responsible for transporting wounded back? Did you ever go back with them?
No, they had regular litter bearers. They worked right out of the aid station. Like if you fixed up somebody, you'd fix him up, and maybe you'd put his helmet down or something. Of course, when they found the GI dead, that's what they did. They put the bayonet on the ground and his helmet on top. So, but usually
Were you seeing GIs get killed?
No, I heard it. I heard a lot of fire in front of me, and the guy come back and says our company commander was shot. He was shot in the first day of combat. He was
And killed.
Oh yeah, dead. He was 6'5", great big, wonderful guy. Everybody loved him. He was killed the first day.
What was his name, do you know?
I think it was Captain Weir. I think he would be leading somebody. He'd be up there leading somebody because he was a perfect shot. He got it right away. That was our first day in combat. But
When you treated the wounded, how did they seem?
well, they were nervous, but I mean they weren't seriously. Lucky I didn't have any gunshot wounds to the chest. I had mostly with a leg and maybe an arm. But if you get shot in the chest, boy, that's awful hard for an aid man to take care of that because they're Westman, you know. So
Sucking chest wound.
see, right. But most of the time, if you could get to the aid station fast enough, they would have a chance.
Was it a shock, the first gunshot wound you saw? Or did it kind of...
Well, yeah, it sort of wake your eyes, but like I said, the real serious, I don't know what would happen if I'd have seen some guy shot to the chest. That would have been really traumatic for me, because you've got a guy that if he's not taken care of, he'll die. But a lot of guys, if they have a sort of a leg wound, a lot of times I put a bayonet like this, you know, a big split, and wrap something around it. He can hobble. But if you got like an army, they call you walking wounded. You're walking wounded. You could walk to the aid station if you can find it. I didn't know where the aid station was half the time. But yeah, some of those wounds were terrible. I don't know what.
Did you have to do any improvisation like with the bayonets? I mean, you had to make do with what you had?
Yeah, just made do what you had. You put a bayonet on a guy's leg, and then if you wrapped around, because his leg wouldn't move, and then you put a tourniquet on it. Well, that's the only way you had it. You didn't have any splints or anything. They had them when they got back to the aid station. But if they got back into the aid station and they didn't, and if they were lucky enough not to bleed to death, but you really had to put that tourniquet on tight.
And did you administer the syrettes of morphine?
I didn't have any morphine. They had it all. I was back in the aid station.
So you're doing basic first aid.
First aid.
To stop the bleeding.
Stop the bleeding, and you put the take your pack out, put sulfanylamide. Then you'd wrap it around his leg, and and then you'd hope that somebody would come to get him. But you didn't know. If the medic could find him. That was the only bad thing. If you fixed up somebody, the letter bearers would get there eventually, but you didn't know when. And with a real sucking wound to the chest, that might have been the final.
Are they able to use Jeeps up that close at all, or no?
Well, they could. I didn't see any, but they could have. But they had four bearers with each litter. And
can you identify Germans in front of you? Can you actually see who you're in combat against?
No, I never saw them face to face, but you could hear them firing. And those two bullets that zipped by me, I knew they were around somewhere. That's why nobody liked to go through the forest, because they're camouflage, and of course this came from behind me. Both shots came from behind me, so they must have been snipers. Because they did just exactly. Everybody stopped on the hill. Oh, the basic training, whatever you do, don't stop on a hill, because you're a perfect silhouette. Well, they stopped, and I got down, but the guy was a couple inches off on my foot. But
you had crossed the Rhine and you're near Dusseldorf when you're having all this combat.
yeah, we circled Dusseldorf. We went around.
Did you actually get into any towns? Now I read about the regiment that they were in a town called Siegburg. Do you remember being there?
No,
so it was
I
street
remember.
to street fighting.
Oh, I know. We were lucky. The part that I was with, we didn't do any street fighting. I was in Solingen. Was that listed in there? Solingen. But Dusseldorf, we circled Dusseldorf. But of course, when they say the 97th Division, that means everybody. Well, now a lot of those guys in the 97th Division took more power and more fighting and more casualties than we did, because we were in a different area. We were spread out so much. I know we crossed the. I forget that German. It was like the Maginot Line.
Siegfried Line?
Siegfried Line. Yeah, it's in this. It's in that magazine that how we crossed the Siegfried Line, and
How many Germans would you say you treated?
oh, maybe 2 or 3, not too many of them.
All young kids.
All young kids.
Gunshots or no?
Yeah, I think they were gunshots, and most of them were just scared to death, and you couldn't do much for them.
You've heard of the term shell shock. Is that how
Oh,
they
yeah.
seemed?
Well, it might have been a mild case. Yeah, they were probably scared and shell shocked. Yeah, that's what Patton. Yeah, that was.
How soon did you get to Czechoslovakia after you got into?
Well, I can't exactly tell you when we did get there. Maybe. I think the war ended when we were still marching, and I think the war was I don't think anything was signed, but the war was ended when we marched into Czechoslovakia.
No. Did you have an idea when you got into combat that things were winding down, that the Germans were pretty...
Well, we noticed an awful lot of prisoners. And
Are they surrendering?
Oh yeah, they would say just put their I didn't see too many, to be truth with you, but we heard that the Germans were surrendering. Now maybe a lot of the guys from the other part of 97th. Now it's not like the Navy. Navy you fight as a unit. Division, I mean, they can be spread all over the place. So like I said, we had three different regiments, and now the 386th might have done a lot more than the 387th, and the 303rd might have did a lot more than both of us. So actually, we just didn't know. You didn't know where the other part of your division was.
You're not being trucked anywhere. You're marching everywhere.
Well, we were trucked a couple times from one place to another. Mostly, it's just on your feet.
Did you actually get into Czechoslovakia?
Oh yeah, we were right in Pilsen. We were right in Pilsen. They took a lot of pictures of us, but of course there was the Czechoslovakian People, so I never had a chance to. And like you saw in that book, there's a statue there in Pilsen of 4 regiments. I think there's they're all Army, and one is a tank corps. And we're permanently. I would love to see that, but.
How were the Czechoslovakian people?
Well, from little I saw them, they were very. Of course, in Pilsen, the city was this jam full of tanks and Army personnel and 2.5-ton trucks. So we didn't get too much chance to talk to anybody there. But I know they were enjoyed that we be there.
Now let's go back a little bit. We talked about some of the medics being captured. Were you aware that medics were captured?
Oh yeah, we heard that the medics were captured in our area.
Were they friends of yours?
Oh
guys
yeah,
you knew?
oh yeah, right in the guys that were right in the company.
And they were returned a few days later?
Yeah, like I said, I think somebody said that it might have been one of the maybe the company. Well, it wouldn't be the company. Maybe the battalion might have put out a notice that if any of the medics were injured in any way, we'd take no prisoners. And they weren't on there too long, because when they got back, they said, "Oh yeah, we were treated right, and they fed us."
You got a chance to talk to some of the guys?
No, I didn't. No.
Oh, okay.
But some of the guys that got a chance to talk to, but I didn't. But I just heard the fellow say that. Well, we talked to some of them, and they were glad to get back, and they weren't treated harshly at all. They just, I guess all they did was just sit around. But then they weren't gone to, I'd say, about 2 days, and then they were back in the aid station. They were all aid station personnel. They weren't any of the 3 medics for each platoon.
Were there a lot of rumors floating around because it's near the end of the war and we get that many guys together? There's lots of rumors. Was it the Germans are going to surrender? No, they're not. This is going to happen. Were there lots of rumors flying?
Well, yeah, there was rumors flying, but actually, to be truthful with you, half the time you didn't know what was going on. All you did was follow the guy ahead of you, and he followed in front of him, and you just walked and walked. Well, that's all you do. And then if there's a little trouble ahead, you just run for the bushes or run for the side of the road. But other than that, it's just you know you're in Europe someplace, but you don't know what's going on. You aren't a personal friend of Patton, so you just know he's behind you. So,
did you ever get the opportunity to see him?
No, we never saw Patton.
Any of the big shot generals did you see?
No, I didn't see it. I didn't see any battalion commanders or regimental commanders or none of those. They were all back in the regimental and the battalion headquarters.
Oscar, what was the funniest thing that happened while you were over there? Anything funny happen?
No, not that I could put my finger on.
You put that many young guys together, there has to be some clowning around.
Well, when we were in Louisiana on maneuvers, everybody used to joke around because we'd all sit around this. There's thousands and thousands of pine trees down there, and what they do, they pick up old dead pines and they put them in. They make a fire, and all that black smoke would come up on your face. Everything was full of black smoke. Then they'd all joke about smelling like turpentine, which is part of a. But other than that, that was in the. That Louisiana, like I said before, that was terrible. Oh, that was terrible. Clothes wet all the time, and they said when these problems are over, and you took your shoes off, laying by the side. What you did, you put your shelter half down first, and then you lay on the shelter half, but put your blanket over the top of you, and then you take your shoes off. And they always said when you get up the next morning, before you put your shoes on, you shake them, because there might be scorpions in them. Of course, that's not very funny, but it is if you step on one. But other than that, there wasn't. Everybody was serious. They all talked, and when they could. But most of the time, we were just walking, looking around. But there wasn't too much joking.
While you were in combat, what was the food like?
Well, we had the K rations. That wasn't too bad. And then they had a little better one. It was like in a plastic box. There was usually like a hash, and there was eggs and ham, and I think there was toilet paper in there, and there was some cigarettes, and then a lot of times when we had maybe a day or so that nothing was happening, everything was slowed down, they'd have trucks come up, and you'd have a regular meal when they could find you. But it was mostly this K ration. Like the camp, of course. I wrote a little bit, then we were gone. We were sitting in the movie, in the theater watching some movie. I forget what it was, and the lights went on. Lights when the movie theater lit up. Everybody started, well, what's the matter? What's the matter? So some guy come out on the stage and said, the war is over. Everybody cheered, and they left. And then we all were sent back to where we were stationed, and then in our barracks, and we just waited around, and that was in Japan when they yelled out the war was over when we did Fort.
Where were you at when you found out the war was over in Europe?
In the fort I can't think of.
In Europe, when you were in Czechoslovakia?
Yeah, we were in Czechoslovakia. We heard.
How did you find out?
Well, I guess it went from mouth to mouth to mouth to ear, and then I can't remember. I don't know whether we were intense when the war ended or what we did, but I remember getting our gear together, and they put us on trucks, and to be truthful, I can't remember where they took us. They had to take us to one of the embarkation points, but I don't know if it was Le Havre or what.
You weren't in Germany too long after the war ended.
Just about a
still
month.
Resisting.
No, that one was over. It was over. They stopped. They stopped and marched home. But there was a lot of Germans, especially there were a lot of Germans around Dusseldorf that surrendered. A lot of them around. That was our big objective, the Ruhr pocket, which was Dusseldorf, and I think Hamburg was in there, and that one that you mentioned. I didn't hear too much about that one, but I did hear about Hamburg and Slingen, Dusseldorf, and but it was just one big melee. And
after the war was over, did you realize that you'd probably end up in Japan?
No, we always thought we'd stay in the state. We knew we wouldn't be discharged. We thought our division would maybe either be split up or maybe go in a unit, and one would be discharged individually. But we didn't know we were going to go to Japan. They told us you're going to go to Japan.
While you were still in Europe?
No, after we got back. After the war.
They saved that surprise for you.
Yeah, after the war, and well, we knew we were going to go when the war in Germany was over. But when we got to Camp Cook, and we found out that the Japanese war was over, then we thought we'd all stay in the States, but we didn't.
How did you get home from Europe?
On a boat. It's truth to me, I don't remember too much about that at all. That part of coming home is a complete blank.
A leave.
From Europe, yeah.
Were you able to come back to Toledo?
Oh yeah, I come back. I spent a month in Toledo, and my folks went to Chicago. My uncle lived in Chicago. We went up there for a couple of days, and I remember walking around Lake Michigan. And then when we got back, I had to write for North Carolina, and that's when the war was still going on. I mean, we knew we were getting ready for Japan.
And your brother was also in the service.
Yeah, he was in Korea. He landed in he landed in Japan. I think the day the armistice was signed. So, but he did go as occupation troops in Korea. So,
he's still at home then when you come home on leave.
Gary was home for a couple of.
Was he in the service when you came home?
No, he wasn't. He wasn't. I think he was in the. He went to Japan. He was in the First Cavalry Division. That's that big yellow patch with a horse head in the center. That's the First Cav. He was the First Cavalry Division. But he didn't seem lucky. He didn't get into. He got in Korea, but the same way with my wife's brother. He was in Tom. He was in Korea too, but he never saw any action because the war ended when he was getting ready to come over from Japan.
Then how did you get redeployed to the Pacific? Do you remember how you got back over there?
Well, like I said, we left Fort Lewis.
In Washington.
Yeah, in Washington, and we got up on deck there. I forget, but we looked out the back and we saw Mount Rainier getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and then we realized we were. Of course, the war was over, and it took us 2 weeks to get over there. It took us 2 weeks on the Pacific. I forgot. We stopped in the Philippines.
What did the Philippines look like? Was it still pretty beat
Well,
up?
all we did, we stopped at the island of Cebu. Everybody come down on the ropes outside the ship, and they had the regular boats there. And then we just went in. We landed at the beach, and we marched around. Maybe about an hour. We marched around in the Philippines on the island. We didn't get anywhere near the main island. Then we all got on the back of the ship. Yeah, we landed in Yokohama the day after the armistice was signed, and there was Navy ships in the harbor. And we were there. I don't think we were there just a couple hours, and they put us on it. No, we stayed overnight. We stayed overnight in some building. I forget what it was. And then the next morning, the first thing we got our Asian flu shots. And those. I've been sick, but never like that. Those were terrible. Everybody was sick, and they ached, and headache, and of course, if you get a shot nowadays, it's sort of it may be cut, but they give us the full blast. So then we moved up into a small town. It was Numata, 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 and I was there 4 months, and I got back to Yokohama and then home.
How were the Japanese people towards you?
They were very, 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 very all in awe of us. And where we finally ended up, we ended up in an old Japanese barracks, and there was some artillery pieces and stuff up there that they had used during their training, and they told us to stay. We don't do anywhere near that, so we didn't get it. But there was a lot of it was a regular Japanese training camp, old barracks, and we stayed there for 4 months. And the three medics, we all stayed in the same room. We stayed in the room with the company commander and the first sergeant, and but there wasn't much to do. There was no patrolling to do. There was a small town, and the small town was called Numata, Numata.
How big a town would you say it was?
I never got downtown, so I don't know. But we stayed on the outskirts, and there was one guy there. He could speak English. He could speak English, so we had a lot of building to do. They built a couple of trains, and they did a lot of remodeling on where the mess hall was going to be. But other than that, there wasn't much we could do. There was we were way up in the mountains, way up in the mountains. So we didn't have anybody, no insurrections or no fighting or anything. There was just regular civilians.
You have 2 Japanese swords. How did you acquire those?
Well, just before I got on a boat, if I can remember, we went in this building. They were stacked high, and they says, "Take what you want." So somebody grabbed 2 samurais, and a couple grabbed sabers. So I bought one of each. The samurai is pretty. It could have been years and years and years old because it was practically falling apart. So there's Japanese writing on it. Of course, I don't know what. I was just sergeant for Camp Atterbury, Indiana, and then I think I came right home from there.
Did your folks know you were coming?
No. I remember getting off the bus with my long winter coat on and my barracks bag, and I got off the bus, and I walked down the street, and we could come in the back. That's when we lived on Melwood Court. We come back into the back of the house, and I walked along the side of the house. And my mother and my sister, I imagine my brother must have been there too. He was little. They were sitting by. I think they were listening to the radio. So I stood there and looked a couple of times, and I went around the front, and I opened the screen door and I knocked at the door, and they didn't know I was coming. Big deal.
So
Big
you
deal.
surprised him.
Oh yeah, I surprised him. And my dad worked at the Spicer over here on Bennett Road, right over here. So I was home in time, so my mom took me over to the spot my dad worked for 311. So I went over to see him when he got out of work. And,
How soon did you go back to work after you got home?
I think about. I looked around quite a few places, and I just didn't know what I wanted to do. So I think it was about 5 months, and then I started working at the Developers Company, and I had pretty steady work there for 3 years. But then I got laid off there, and I was looking again, and then I finally got this job at it was Tillenius and Randolph. It was a hometown company. Well, both owners lived in Toledo, and then I worked there 38 years.
And how many children did you have? Work after high school.
Well, I worked for the Developers Company for 3 years, and I got involved with the layoffs. And then I worked at the Costco Graphics Company downtown. They were downtown at Smith and Canton. I worked there 38 years. We made rubber printing plates and rubber dies and stamps. And I retired in September of 1988. That was a very nice working place. A lot of veterans there, and it was a well-known shop here.
Have you ever told your sons or your grandkids about your time?
Well, a little bit. I might have told the kids when I was
Is this
little.
the most you've ever talked about it?
I would say yeah. Yeah, I would say yeah. Of course, I told them I was in Japan and all that other stuff, but I never got down. To be truthful with you, myself and our division we were pretty lucky because we were shipped in the States so long, we just didn't know what we're going to do, and we would have got, if we would have got over there even after we left Fort Leonard Wood, we might have got in the Bulge, but they shipped us west, and then we got all that training for Japan, then we got back across the States, and the war was practically over by the time we got over there. The war was practically over. So our division was pretty lucky. But I didn't notice there was that many killed or wounded. Now see, I didn't know that because that part of the 97th Division I wasn't with.
Do you think your time in the military changed you at all? Or in the Army?
Well, you learn to, of course, in basic training they teach you, sir, always sir, and speak only when you're spoken to. But I think it's a good education. You meet a lot of people, which is the main thing. You meet a lot of people that sometimes you never knew people like that existed. We had bare feet, and we had one guy. Well, I won't mention that. But he was completely criticized for a condition that he could not help. He could not help his condition. He could not help. Nowadays they can treat it and no problem, but they just didn't. They all wanted to criticize him, and he had a tough time. He had a tough time.
Did you join any veterans organizations after?
Yeah, I remember the American Legion, Post 606, over here on Tremainsville, and no, they're out on Lasky. There used to be the old grotto, and then I belong to the state Post 888. That's the post state post. I'm not like Walter Weller or Conweisberg. I belong to a state post.
Mm-hmm.
But I got quite a few friends at Walter Weller. They want me to come and join, but I don't know. I hate to get involved with something, and then they ask you to do something, and you volunteer, then you can't do it. So I said, well, I'll just be a post, and I still got a magazine every month. Same way with the VFW.
Okay, here's the last question, Oscar. It's the hardest one.
Uh-oh.
If you had one bit of advice to pass on to the next generation, what would it be?
Well, be yourself. Be yourself. Thank God you're living in America. You have all the opportunities that anybody can have, and make sure that you make the best of the life that the Lord gave you. Have a good family, have a good family life, good kids, good grandkids, and always believe in God, obey the laws that are there just to help you, and just do the best you can, and thank God you live in America. There's no other place on earth like America. I had a pretty eventful 3 years. Luckily, I'm still here. I thank the good Lord I'm still here, because I could have been dead twice. I could have been dead twice. But
Lest we forget.